Relax, old man. It's just for content. Arya Nalan's voice snapped across the park like a sudden crack of thunder. She was 16, her phone held high as she recorded herself kicking an older homeless man seated against a faded brick wall. She didn't hit him with enough force to cause real damage. Just enough to make him flinch, just enough to make her friends cackle, just enough to make the video trend. Behind her, teenagers snickered, the camera capturing every second as Arya posed like she had just scored a victory. The man she'd chosen as her prop, Samuel Reed, 69, a disabled Marine veteran and Purple Heart recipient, struggled to push himself upright. His bad leg buckled. He slumped back down, face tightening with pain and humiliation. Arya kept filming. Judge Frank Caprio would later sit alone in his chambers and watch that video 3 times. Each viewing carved a deeper line in his expression, not anger, but a sorrow that reached bone deep. Because Judge Caprio knew something Arya Nalan didn't. Something about her mother, Governor Eleanor Nalan. A secret kept quiet for 2 years. A truth that would stop Arya's smirk cold and break apart everything she believed about privilege, power, and herself. Monday morning in Providence Municipal Court felt heavier than usual. People whispered, reporters crowded the back wall. Camera crews angled for a perfect shot. Everyone knew why they were there. The governor's daughter, the viral video, the homeless veteran. Judge Caprio sat at the bench, hands folded, expression unreadable. 3 decades on the bench had shown him cruelty before, but recording someone suffering for entertainment, this was a different kind of darkness. The clerk rose. Judge Caprio nodded. "Let's begin," he said quietly. Miss Ramirez opened the file with professional precision, though even she looked uneasy. Case number 2026 TR 99214. City of Providence versus Arya Nalan. Charges include assault of a disabled veteran, disorderly conduct, harassment, filming harmful acts for online distribution, and resisting officer instructions. Arya sat slouched, unimpressed, examining her nails like she was waiting for a manicure appointment. Each charge seemed to bore her. Judge Caprio's voice cut the air. "Miss Nalan, stand when charges are being read." Arya let out a loud sigh, then pushed herself up slowly as though she were doing the world a favor. "Where is your parent or guardian?" Judge Caprio asked. "My mom's the governor," Arya replied flatly. "She's running the state. She said she'd send someone." "She said she'd send someone." "Yeah, a lawyer or something, someone to handle it." Judge Caprio studied her. "Handle it, make it go away." Just like every other mess. A quiet murmur rustled through the courtroom. Judge Caprio raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. "Nothing goes away in my courtroom, Miss Nalan," he said. "Not because of who your mother is. Not because you want it to." Arya rolled her eyes. "We'll see." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you understand the charges against you?" "I guess," she said. "You guess." "I mean, yeah, but come on, they're ridiculous." "I was just making a video." "A video," Judge Caprio repeated. "It's called content. Everyone does it. Everyone kicks homeless people for content." "It wasn't like that," Arya snapped. "It was a dare, the kick challenge." "You wouldn't get it, it's a Gen Z thing." "I see." He folded his hands. "And the man you kicked, do you know who he is?" Arya shrugged. "Some homeless guy just sitting there." "His name is Samuel Reed," Judge Caprio said. "He served in the United States Marine Corps, 2 tours in Vietnam. He was wounded in combat. He earned the Purple Heart. He lost partial use of his leg due to shrapnel." The courtroom went dead quiet. Arya blinked. I didn't know that." "Would it have mattered?" Arya stayed silent. "Would you have kicked him anyway for the views?" She looked away. Arya wasn't simply entitled, she was strategic. Every shrug, every eye roll, every reminder that her mother was the governor. It was all calculated. She'd learned early that power padded consequences, that public scandals could be spin-doctored, that the right phone call could erase accountability. She thought Judge Frank Caprio would fold like everyone else. "It was a joke," Arya said suddenly. "He's homeless. He probably doesn't even care. He's probably forgotten." Judge Caprio's jaw tightened barely but enough. You believe being homeless means someone doesn't deserve dignity. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? It wasn't a big deal, Arya insisted. It lasted like 2 seconds. I barely touched him. Judge Caprio lifted a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it toward her. Is this you? On the screen the video played, Arya approaching Samuel, laughing, kicking, his body jolting, her friends cheering. The camera zooming in on Samuel's face, confusion hurt shame. Arya's face drained of color. That's out of context. What context makes it acceptable? Judge Caprio asked. She had no answer. You posted this yourself, he said. Captioned, homeless man challenge, who's next? You tagged your friends. You added laughing emojis. 17,000 views in the first hour. Arya's hand started trembling. It was just for fun. Fun, Judge Caprio repeated softly. He set the tablet down. Miss Nolan, do you know what your mother has been doing every Tuesday evening for the last 2 years? The question hit her like a brick. She works, Arya said. Meetings, budget stuff. I don't know. Governor stuff, Judge Caprio murmured. Yeah, why are you asking me this? Because I want to know, he said quietly, if you know your mother at all. A side door opened. All heads turned. 2 officers escorted Samuel Reed slowly into the courtroom. The moment Arya saw him, the man she had kicked like he was an object, her throat tightened despite herself. Samuel moved with a cane, each step stiff and deliberate. His shoulders stooped from years of both physical and emotional weight. His clothes were clean but worn, the fabric thin at the elbows. Yet there was a quiet dignity about him, a gravity. He did not look at Arya. Judge Caprio spoke gently. Mr. Reed, you may take a seat if you need to. Samuel nodded, lowering himself with effort. Thank you, Your Honor. His voice was rough but steady. Officer Daniels stepped forward with the official report. Your Honor, on the morning of the incident, we received multiple 911 calls from bystanders. A crowd had formed around Mr. Reed. Some were filming. Mr. Reed was visibly shaken and in pain. He glanced at Arya briefly, then continued. When we arrived, Miss Nolan attempted to walk away despite instructions to remain on scene. She stated, and this is a direct quote, I have somewhere to be and he's fine. It was a trend. A ripple of disapproval swept the courtroom. Arya stared at the floor, cheeks burning. Judge Caprio turned to Samuel. Mr. Reed, would you like to say anything regarding what occurred? Samuel exhaled softly, choosing his words with care. Your Honor, I've been on the streets a long time. You get used to people pretending you don't exist. You get used to being invisible. He paused. But I never expected a kid, someone the same age as my granddaughter would have been, to kick me for fun, to record it, to laugh. Arya swallowed hard, unable to look at him. Samuel continued, voice trembling only slightly. I didn't report it to press. I didn't want attention. I don't want revenge. I just want her to understand that people like me were still people. Silence pressed down like weight. Judge Caprio nodded. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Your words matter here. He turned back to Arya. Miss Nolan, do you have anything to say to Mr. Reed? Arya lifted her eyes slightly, not enough to face him fully. I didn't mean to actually hurt him, she muttered. I swear. I wasn't thinking, it was stupid. My friends were watching, it was pressure, okay? Samuel spoke quietly. Pressure to be cruel, Arya flinched. I didn't mean it like that. But that is what it was, Judge Caprio said. Pressure to entertain, pressure to impress, pressure to treat a human being like a prop. Arya clenched her jaw. You don't get it. Everyone online does stuff for views. My video wasn't even the worst one. People do pranks, challenges, everything. I'm not the only one. But you are the one standing here today, Judge Caprio said calmly. Before Arya could respond, the side door opened again. Gasps filled the courtroom. Governor Eleanor Nolan entered, flanked by 2 aides. Arya's face went pale. Mom, she whispered. But her mother did not rush to her, did not hug her, did not smile. Instead, Governor Nolan approached the bench, composed but exhausted, her eyes rimmed slightly red, not from anger but from something deeper. Judge Caprio's gaze softened. Governor Nolan, I wasn't sure if you would come. I had to, she said quietly. Because my daughter needs to hear the truth today. Arya blinked. What truth? Her mother looked at her, really looked at her, with an expression Arya couldn't decode. Something I should have told you long ago, Governor Nolan said. Judge Caprio leaned back slightly, allowing her the floor. The courtroom held its breath. Arya, her mother said, voice trembling just once, every Tuesday night I volunteer at the Hope Street homeless shelter. Arya froze. No, you don't. You said you were working late. I was, her mother replied gently. Working on people, not paperwork. Arya stared. But why would you hide that from me? Governor Nolan inhaled deeply. Because I wanted you to learn compassion on your own, not because it was politically convenient or expected of you. I wanted empathy to come from your heart, not from my influence. Arya felt heat prick behind her eyes. Her mother continued. And for the last 2 years, do you know who I've spent most of those Tuesday nights talking to? Arya shook her head. Samuel Reed. Arya's breath hitched. What? Governor Nolan turned toward Samuel and he nodded slowly, respectfully. Your mother is a good listener, Samuel said quietly. She brings warm meals. She treats us like human beings. That's rare. Arya's world tilted. Judge Caprio spoke softly. Miss Nolan, the man you kicked is the same man your mother has been helping for 2 years. Arya's knees almost gave out. Her mother's voice cracked. You hurt the very person I've been trying to protect from the cruelty of this world. Tears finally spilled down Arya's cheeks. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Governor Nolan's expression held heartbreak, but not hatred. I know you didn't, but now you do. The courtroom remained motionless as if no one dared breathe. Arya stood rooted in place, tears streaking down her cheeks while her mother's revelation echoed in her mind. Samuel Reed. The man she kicked. The man her mother had been serving hot meals to. The man whose name she didn't even bother to learn. Judge Caprio let the silence stretch, allowing its weight to settle into Arya's bones. Governor Nolan, he finally said, you may continue. Her mother nodded, stepping closer to her daughter not to comfort her but to confront her with truth. Arya, she said softly, I didn't volunteer at the shelter to impress anyone. I went because compassion must be lived, not spoken. And while I've been doing that, you have been living inside a world of screens and spectators. Arya wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed by her own tears. I didn't mean, her mother raised a hand gently. I know you didn't mean to cause harm, but intention does not erase impact. Arya's throat tightened. I didn't think. That, Governor Nolan said, is exactly the problem. She turned toward Samuel, her voice steady but full of ache. Mr. Reed, I am so deeply sorry, not as governor, as a mother. Samuel nodded with quiet grace. You have nothing to apologize for, ma'am. Arya sank onto her chair, her chest heavy. The guilt was no longer abstract, it had a face, a history, a connection she never saw coming. Judge Caprio folded his hands and leaned forward. Miss Nolan, he said gently, look at Mr. Reed. Arya hesitated. Please, he added. Slowly she lifted her eyes. Samuel met her gaze, not angrily, not bitterly, just with a sadness that pierced deeper than any rage could have. I'm sorry, Arya whispered. I'm really sorry. I didn't know you. I didn't know anything. Samuel nodded once. I believe you, but the world still needs you to learn. Arya covered her mouth as another wave of tears hit. Judge Caprio's voice remained calm, almost fatherly. Young lady, every person you see on the street has a story. You didn't bother to ask his, but the camera you used to hurt him. That camera captured something far more important. Arya looked up, confused through her tears. It captured who you were in that moment, the judge said, but it does not need to capture who you will be tomorrow. Governor Nolan exhaled shakily, relief and grief tangled together. Judge Caprio straightened. Before I issue sentencing, I must ask one more thing. He looked at Samuel. Mr. Reed, would you be willing to tell us your story, only if you're comfortable? Samuel hesitated, then gave a small nod. I can, he said. The courtroom grew even quieter. He shifted slightly in his seat, his voice steady but touched with memory. I served in the Marines, Vietnam, lost a lot of friends, Lost a part of myself too, my legs, sure, but also, life never felt the same when I came home. He cleared his throat. I had a wife, a daughter, a granddaughter, but trauma changes people. It makes you pull away from the ones who love you the most. Eventually, they moved on, and I didn't blame them. Arya's eyes widened with shame. Samuel continued. I worked odd jobs for years. Then an injury took me out of work. Bills built up. I spiraled. One day I just didn't have a home anymore, and it's harder to climb back than people think. He looked at Arya again, not with anger but with raw honesty. I've been invisible for so long that your kick, he paused. It wasn't the pain that hurt. It was the reminder that to a lot of people I'm not a person at all. Arya broke, quietly, completely. I didn't know, she sobbed. I didn't think about your life, or your family, or your past. I was stupid. Samuel shook his head gently. No, you were careless, but carelessness can be corrected. Cruelty can be unlearned. Judge Caprio sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that comes from decades of watching human frailty. Miss Nolan, he said, this court has seen many young people make mistakes. Some learn, some don't. But today you must choose which path you'll take. Arya nodded, wiping her face, voice trembling. I want to learn, I swear I do. Just tell me how. Judge Caprio exchanged a glance with Governor Nolan, then looked at Samuel. Mr. Reed, would you object if Miss Nolan's community service involved working at the Hope Street shelter? Samuel smiled faintly. No objection, Your Honor. In fact, I'd appreciate the help. Arya's breath caught. Her mother closed her eyes briefly, relief washing through her. Judge Caprio nodded once. Very well. He lifted the gavel slightly, but not to strike it. Miss Nolan, this is not punishment. This is an opportunity. You will work at the shelter. You will learn people's stories. You will serve them meals. You will see the world outside your screen. Arya whispered, I will. And for the first time, she meant it. Judge Caprio adjusted his glasses and looked at Arya with a steady, measured calm that carried decades of wisdom. Before I finalize the terms of your community service, he said, I need to know one thing. Are you willing to face the consequences without your mother shielding you? Arya nodded, shoulders trembling. Yes, I don't want her to fix this. I want to fix it myself. Governor Nolan inhaled deeply, part relief, part heartache. For the first time in a long time, she saw her daughter standing as a young adult, not a child insulated by privilege. Judge Caprio continued. You will serve 150 hours at the Hope Street shelter, not as punishment, but as a way to rebuild what you broke inside yourself. A faint murmur traveled through the courtroom, some surprised, some approving. Arya absorbed the number with a small nod. She didn't argue. She didn't roll her eyes. She simply accepted. Judge Caprio lifted a folder. In addition, you will attend weekly counseling sessions, not because you're a bad person, but because empathy must sometimes be taught when the world fails to teach it early. Arya blinked, taken aback. Counseling? She hadn't expected that, but she whispered, okay. Governor Nolan sat beside her now, placing a light hand on her back, not to protect her, but to support her through accountability. The judge wasn't finished. Lastly, he said, you will publicly apologize, not online, not in a statement written by an aide, but face-to-face with Mr. Reed and with the residents of the shelter. Arya paled. A room full of people she'd ignored her whole life. People who saw her as the girl who kicked a homeless veteran for content. I understand, she whispered. Then Judge Caprio asked the question that could shape everything. Mr. Reed, do you have anything you'd like to request of the court? Samuel shook his head, cane resting between his palms. No, Your Honor. The young lady's apology is enough for me, and her help at the shelter will be good for both of us. Arya bit her lip, humbled by his kindness. Judge Caprio smiled softly. Mr. Reed, you continue to teach compassion even in the face of cruelty. That is commendable. Samuel nodded, a little embarrassed by the attention. Judge Caprio addressed the courtroom. Before I conclude, I want everyone here to understand something. He turned toward the crowd, the reporters, officers, audience, staff. We live in a world where people chase attention more than purpose. Likes, Views and shares have become a currency of worth. But humanity is not entertainment. Suffering is not a challenge. And people, no matter their circumstances, are not props. His words carried through the entire room like a quiet sermon. Arya lowered her head again, tears gathering. Judge Caprio's tone softened. Miss Nolan, you made a cruel decision, but cruelty isn't permanent. Today can be the start of something different if you choose to let it. I will, she whispered. I promise, he nodded. Then this court will give you the chance to prove it. He lifted his gavel, paused, and spoke with dignity. Sentencing is hereby issued. Court is adjourned. Bang. As the courtroom emptied, reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust out. Questions flew like arrows. Governor Nolan, will you comment? Arya, do you regret the challenge? Is this a political scandal? Will you appeal the sentence? What do you say to the public outrage? Governor Nolan raised a hand sharply. No comment on politics, she said firmly. My daughter will not be speaking today. Arya stayed close to her mother, head bowed, overwhelmed. Samuel Reed stood to the side, waiting quietly, not for attention but simply giving space. Judge Caprio stepped off the bench and walked toward them. Governor Nolan, he said, I know this is difficult, but I believe your daughter can grow from this. She nodded, voice low. So do I. The judge turned to Arya. Miss Nolan, he said kindly, remember, growth begins where excuses end. Arya whispered, Thank you, Your Honor. He smiled faintly. Don't thank me yet. The real work starts now. Outside the courthouse, the wind was cold. Arya zipped her jacket, shivering more from nerves than the weather. Her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I'm proud of you, she said quietly, not for what happened but for how you're choosing to face it. Arya swallowed hard. I'm scared, she admitted. I don't know what's waiting for me at the shelter. I don't know what they'll think of me. Her mother's voice softened. They will think you are trying, and that is the first step to respect. Just then, Samuel stepped outside. Arya looked up hesitantly. Mr. Reed, she said. He smiled, tired but sincere. I'll see you Tuesday, he said. Arya nodded, heart heavy but hopeful. Tuesday, she repeated. As he walked away, she exhaled a long, shaky breath that felt like the first step toward something new. For the first time since the video went viral, she felt ready to change. The following Tuesday arrived faster than Arya expected. All weekend she had felt like her stomach was tied in knots, dread mixing with shame, and something else she barely recognized. A desire to do better. The Hope Street shelter stood at the corner of an old brick neighborhood. The sign was faded, the windows clean but tired. Arya hesitated outside the door, clutching the volunteer form Judge Caprio had signed. This was it. She inhaled and pushed the door open. Warm air washed over her, carrying scents of soup, detergent, and something that felt strangely like comfort. Inside, volunteers moved around with practiced rhythm. Residents sat at tables sipping coffee, reading newspapers, or simply warming up from the cold. Arya took a step, then another. A staff member approached, a woman in her 40s with a bright scarf and sharp eyes. You must be Arya Nolan, she said. Arya's cheeks burned. Everyone here knew. Everyone had seen the video. Yes, ma'am. I'm Miss Harper. I run the volunteer program. Follow me. Arya walked behind her like a nervous child on the first day of school. We'll start you in the kitchen. Prep work, serving lines, cleanup. You'll rotate through the other roles later. Arya nodded quickly. That's fine. Miss Harper stopped and turned, looking her directly in the eyes. I want you to hear something clearly, she said. No one here expects perfection, just effort. You'll make mistakes. You'll feel uncomfortable. That's part of the process. Arya swallowed. I understand. Good. Miss Harper smiled gently. Let's begin. In the kitchen, volunteers chopped vegetables, stirred pots, and tied aprons. Arya was handed a stack of potatoes and a peeler. Simple, mechanical, repetitive, but her fingers shook. As she worked, she heard a familiar voice behind her. You're holding that peeler like it's a weapon. She spun around. Samuel Reed stood there, leaning on his cane, an amused but gentle expression on his face. I'm just nervous, she said. He smiled. We all start somewhere. He moved beside her and nodded toward the potatoes. Try angling it this way, less chance of scraping your knuckles. Arya copied him carefully. Better, smoother. A tiny swell of pride warmed her chest. Thanks, she whispered. Samuel nodded and continued supervising the volunteers. For the next hour, Arya peeled, chopped, stirred, and carried trays. She expected people to glare at her, judge her, whisper behind her back. But most residents simply smiled, nodded, or thanked her softly. Their kindness after what she had done almost hurt more than anger would have. Lunch service began. Arya stood behind the counter, ladling soup into bowls. "Next, please," she said quietly. An older woman approached with a tray. She looked at Arya for a long moment, not with disdain, but with something closer to recognition. "You're the girl from the news," the woman said. Arya felt her chest tighten. "Yes, I am." The woman nodded, accepting her bowl. "Then I'm glad you're here." Arya blinked. "You are. We've all been hurt by someone before," the woman said gently. "But we've also all hurt someone too. Growth starts when you face what you've done." Arya felt tears prick her eyes again. "Thank you, really." The woman smiled warmly and moved on. After service, Arya cleaned tables, wiped counters, swept floors. Sweat dotted her forehead. Her back ached. It wasn't easy work physically or emotionally. Later in the afternoon, while stacking clean dishes, she heard someone speaking softly nearby. It was Samuel again. He was telling a story to two residents, a story Arya hadn't heard before. "She used to braid my beard before school," Samuel said with a laugh. "My granddaughter, smartest kid you'd ever meet." Arya paused, listening. "What happened to her?" one resident asked. Samuel's smile faded. "She passed, fever, quick, unexpected." Silence. Arya's heart twisted. He lost his granddaughter and she had been about the same age as Arya. Her throat tightened painfully. When their conversation ended, Samuel noticed Arya lingering. "You heard that, didn't you?" he asked gently. "I'm sorry," Arya whispered. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop, I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to know," Samuel said. "Some stories come out when they're ready." Arya shifted, eyes lowered. "I wish I could take back what I did." Samuel rested a hand lightly on his cane. "You can't," he said softly, "but you can choose what you do next. That's what matters." Arya nodded. "Mr. Reed," she said quietly, "do you forgive me?" He looked at her for a long moment, studying, contemplating. "Yes," he finally said, "but forgiveness isn't a finish line, it's the starting point." Arya let out a breath she'd been holding for days. "Thank you," she whispered. Samuel smiled kindly. "See you Thursday," he said. "Thursday. Another shift. Another chance." When Arya left the shelter that day, her clothes smelled of soup and disinfectant, her hands ached, and her eyes were tired. But for the first time in weeks, maybe years, her heart felt lighter. She walked out into the cold air, exhaled, and thought, maybe Judge Caprio was right. Maybe this is where the real change begins.